The galaxy called it a miracle. For the first time in recorded history, the High Galactic Council announced a unified peace treaty, one that included humanity not as a junior species, not as a client state, but as an equal signatory. War banners were lowered. Border fleets powered down. Entire systems broadcast celebrations in 100,000 languages. Humans watched quietly. The treaty summit was held above Viral Prime, a neutral world wrapped in marble-white orbital rings and ceremonial defense platforms. Council diplomats filled the chamber with practiced smiles and carefully rehearsed praise. They spoke of cooperation, trust, and a future without war. They spoke as if the past had never happened. Admiral Elias Rowan stood among Earth's delegation, hands folded behind his back, eyes calm, unreadable. To alien observers, he looked relaxed, almost bored. He was neither. The treaty text scrolled across the hollow table, clause after clause dense with legal precision. Disarmament schedules, fleet limitations, peacekeeping, patrol rights granted to Council forces, human military presence restricted near shared borders, emergency response authority transferred, temporarily, they claimed, to Council command. Perfectly reasonable. Perfectly lethal. Rowan didn't interrupt. He didn't object. He simply listened as his internal implant flagged inconsistencies, buried subclauses, and redundancies that only made sense if someone intended to exploit them. Restricted corridors aligned too neatly with known human supply route. Neutral zones overlapped with Earth's fastest response vectors. Across the table, Counselor Shareth smiled with too many teeth. Humanity's willingness to trust, the alien said smoothly, will be remembered as the moment the galaxy truly became civilized. Rowan met the counselor's eyes and returned the smile. Humanity has always valued preparation, he replied. The chamber laughed politely. Behind the scenes, human fleets did not stand down. They adjusted. In deep space, far beyond treaty-monitored zones, ships changed formation by fractions of a degree. Weapons classified as inactive shifted to auxiliary power. Cargo vessels registered as diplomatic support quietly rerouted mass and energy allocations. Every human captain received the same three-word update, transmitted through channels the Council didn't know existed. Protocol Lantern. Phase 1. On Earth, civilians celebrated like everyone else. Fireworks lit the skies over megacities. News anchors spoke of a new era. Children watched streams of alien delegates shaking human hands and believed, just for a moment, that war might truly be over. Military command did not celebrate. Deep beneath Earth's crust, in chambers never listed on any treaty, analysts watched as Council fleets repositioned for peacekeeping. Their trajectories formed patterns too precise, too intentional. Satellites detected subtle gravitic distortions, fleet mass being redistributed, not reduced. "They're hurting us," a strategist said quietly. "No," another replied. "They think they are." Back at the summit, the final moment arrived. The ceremonial signing. Crystal light washed over the chamber as each representative placed their mark on the treaty. Applause echoed. History, the Council declared, had been made. When it was Rowan's turn, he stepped forward without hesitation. He signed. For a fraction of a second, Council sensors registered a harmless spike in human network traffic, dismissed as ceremonial data synchronization. No alarms sounded. No warnings triggered. But across human space, locks disengaged. Dormant systems woke. Weapons the galaxy believed dismantled shifted from standby to readiness and silence so absolute it went unnoticed. Railgun capacitors charged at fractional rates beneath civilian energy noise. Fleet AIs completed simulations they had been running for decades. Humanity had not trusted the treaty. Humanity had studied it. As the ceremony concluded, Counselor Shareth leaned closer, voice low. "You have done the right thing, Admiral. Peace benefits everyone." Rowan looked out at the stars beyond the chamber glass, at the carefully positioned Council fleets, at the corridors they thought controlled, At the battlefield they believed already won. Yes, Rowan said calmly. Peace benefits the prepared. The Council did not understand the tone. Not yet. But they would. Because while the galaxy believed peace had been signed, humanity had arrived exactly as planned, armed. The first signs of betrayal arrived wrapped in courtesy. Council, peacekeeping, fleets began their patrols within hours of the signing, drifting into positions uncomfortably close to human trade corridors and colonial systems. Official communiques described the movement as routine stabilization. Unofficially, every human sensor officer saw the same thing: interdiction arcs forming, choke points tightening, exit vectors quietly sealed. On the bridge of the human diplomatic cruiser Resolute, Captain Mara Chen watched the approach with practiced calm. Her ship's transponder broadcast compliance codes, its weapon ports sealed, its profile indistinguishable from any other treaty-bound vessel. Beneath the hull, railgun capacitors warmed. Council frigates adjusting formation, her tactical officer reported. They're boxing us in. Chen nodded. Let them. Across human space, similar reports streamed in. Patrol craft requesting inspections. Communication delays blamed on network harmonization. Navigation beacons subtly rerouted, nudging human vessels into narrower lanes. No single action violated the treaty outright. Together, they formed a net. At Galactic Council headquarters, confidence bloomed. They're complying, one advisor said, watching the data. Human fleets are holding position. They always believed in law, another replied. They'll follow the treaty to the letter. That assumption was the trap. Because humanity was following the treaty. Exactly. The first clause activated was humanitarian. Evacuation rights for civilian transports under Council protection. Within hours, human civilian ships began moving. Families, workers, colonists, escorted by Council peacekeepers who believed they were supervising retreat. They didn't notice the cargo manifests changing. On the Ethris, now operating under a neutral designation, Admiral Rowan stood before a live tactical projection of the galaxy. Red lines showed Council fleet movements tightening. Blue markers, human, slid away from populated worlds with deliberate slowness. Phase 2 is clean, an aide reported. Civilian corridors secured. No alarms triggered. Good, Rowan said. They won't fire until they believe we're helpless. And right on schedule, the first demand arrived. A formal Council directive cited treaty verification protocols. Human diplomatic fleets were ordered to power down engines for inspection. Compliance was expected within the hour. On hundreds of human bridges, the same question was asked. Orders. The answer arrived instantly. Comply. Human ships reduced output. Drives idled. Weapon seals remained locked, visibly. Council vessels closed in, confident, predatory, their commanders savoring the moment restraint would become surrender. On the Resolute, Captain Chen exhaled slowly as alien ships flanked her hull. Inspection teams preparing to board, her officer said. Let them dock, Chen replied. Mark the moment. The moment came when the first Council boarding craft latched on. Across human space, that single event triggered a cascade. Protocol Lantern. Phase 3. Treaty-allowed auxiliary systems came online. Backup reactors. Legal, civilian-rated, fed power into channels the Council had never monitored. Railguns reached operational thresholds under the cover of life support fluctuations. Fleet AIs synchronized targeting data through quantum bursts masked as navigational corrections. Humanity had not smuggled weapons into peace. They had redefined what counted as one. At Council command, sensors flickered. Minor energy spikes, an analyst reported. Probably human inefficiency. Then a human cruiser vanished. Not destroyed. Gone. Micro-warped beyond inspection range in a maneuver theoretically impossible under treaty restrictions. Then another. Then dozens. Panic rippled through alien command channels. They're moving, a commander shouted. They shouldn't be able to move. On the Resolute, Captain Chun smiled grimly as the boarding lock disengaged, forced open from the inside. Council team neutralized, her officer said calmly. Non-lethal. Transmit the message, Chun ordered. Across every open channel, a single human broadcast replaced Council authority. Peace was offered in bad faith. Compliance is terminated. Human ships surged to life. The trap snapped shut. Not on humanity, but on those who thought peace meant disarmament. And as the first human railguns rotated into firing position, the galaxy realized a terrible truth. Humanity had never come to negotiate survival. They had come prepared to enforce it. The first shots shattered the illusion of peace. Council fleets opened fire almost simultaneously across multiple sectors, convinced speed and surprise would compensate for what they now sensed was a catastrophic miscalculation. Plasma lances and ion barrages tore through space toward human vessels still officially listed as non-combatants. They never reached their targets. Human point defense grids bloomed to life, intercepting incoming fire with machine-perfect precision. Railgun turrets rotated smoothly, their movement calm, deliberate, nothing like the panic spreading through Council command channels. On the bridge of the Ethris, Admiral Rowan watched the tactical display update in real time. Enemy formations collapsed the moment they fired, their trajectories predicted, countered, and neutralized before the second volley could form. They chose the timing for us, Rowan said quietly. Execute Phase 4. Across human space, fleets that had appeared compliant moments earlier shed their diplomatic mask. Hull panels retracted. Weapon ports unfolded. Ships classified as cargo carriers revealed internal mass accelerators, missile bays, and drone swarms engineered for one purpose: overwhelming dominance. Humanity did not escalate. It revealed. The first railgun strike fired from beyond Council sensor range, a tungsten slug accelerated to relativistic speed. It punched through a Council flagship's command core with surgical precision, leaving the rest of the vessel intact but dead. Engines dark, weapons silent, leadership erased in a single instant. Shock rippled through the alien armada. "They're targeting command nodes," one Council admiral screamed. "They're not fighting the fleet, they're killing control." Exactly. Human fleet doctrine unfolded like a lesson written in fire. Precision strikes disabled communications. Electromagnetic pulses froze propulsion. Drones swarmed weapon systems, cutting power feeds without breaching hulls. Entire battle groups went dark, drifting helplessly as human ships passed them by. On the Resolute, Captain Chun watched a Council destroyer attempt to flee. "Track locked," her tactical officer reported. "Disable engines only," Chun replied. "Let them watch." The railgun fired. The destroyer's engines vanished in a blossom of controlled annihilation. The ship spun, intact but powerless, its crew alive and fully aware of their helplessness. Across Council space, panic became chaos. "They weren't disarmed," an analyst cried. "They were waiting." Council command tried to regroup, issuing contradictory orders, attempting counteroffensives that never aligned. Human AIs predicted every maneuver before it happened. Battle simulations completed faster than Council officers could speak command. The High Council chamber erupted into shouting. "This is a violation of peace," a counselor protested. "You violated it first," a human envoy replied coldly, broadcasting from a secure channel they could not shut down. "We simply planned for honesty." The tide of battle turned irrevocably. Human fleets flowed through Council defenses like water through broken stone, avoiding civilian habitats, bypassing infrastructure, striking only military and command targets. Where Council fleets concentrated, humans dispersed. Where Council defenses hardened, humans bypassed. There was no front line. There was only inevitability. Within hours, entire Council sectors were silent. Fleets disabled. Command hubs offline. Strategic shipyards frozen mid-production, their reactors locked in safe shutdown by human code injections. Admiral Rowan surveyed the aftermath without satisfaction or anger. "Broadcast Phase 5, he ordered. A single message echoed across the galaxy, translated into every known language. Peace was offered. It was betrayed. Humanity is now enforcing the terms of survival." Neutral species watched in stunned silence. They had believed humanity cautious. They had mistaken restraint for weakness. As the last Council battle group in the sector went dark, Rowan allowed himself a single breath. "This," he said softly, "is why we came armed." And the war, decisive, methodical, unstoppable, had only just begun. By the second day, the war no longer looked like war. There were no grand fleet engagements, no desperate last stands broadcast for sympathy. There were only silences, entire Council sectors going dark one after another, their command networks severed with such precision that even distress calls failed to launch. Humanity had seized the tempo. On the Ethris, Admiral Rowan watched the galaxy reorganize itself around human movement. Blue markers flowed through former Council territory, not in conquest patterns, but in enforcement lines. Every vector intersected a strategic node. Shipyards, relay hubs, fleet academies, logistics nexuses. None touched population centers. Council resistance has collapsed into isolated pockets, an intelligence officer reported. No unified command. No coherent counter-strategy. Rowan nodded. "Then we end it cleanly." Human fleets transitioned from combat to control with terrifying efficiency. Specialized enforcement squadrons micro-jumped directly into secured orbits, disabling orbital weapons before they could cycle up. Planetary shields dropped under targeted code intrusion, not bombardment. Military bases woke to find their power grids inert, doors locked, and human drones hovering silently outside every hangar. On the Council homeworld of Viral Prime, panic spread as defense networks failed one layer at a time. "They're not attacking," a planetary governor whispered, staring at the darkened sky. "They're taking us apart." Above the planet, human ships held position, motionless, omnipresent. A transmission cut through every frequency. "This system is under human enforcement," Admiral Rowan's voice said, calm and unraised. "All military assets will remain powered down. Civilian life will continue uninterrupted. Compliance ensures safety. No threats. No ultimatums." The implication was enough. Across Council space, leaders tried to flee. Human interceptors caught them in micro-warp, engines disabled with precise kinetic taps that left ships drifting helplessly. No executions. No spectacle. Just capture and containment. Neutral observers were invited to watch. For the first time in galactic history, humanity allowed independent species to verify its actions in real time. Every strike logged. Every target justified. Every spared city recorded. "This isn't revenge," one neutral analyst said in disbelief. "It's enforcement." Exactly. Where Council propaganda hubs had once broadcast unity and superiority, human signals now replaced them, cold, factual, undeniable. Footage of Council fleets firing first. Treaty clauses highlighted and cross-referenced. Timelines synchronized down to the microsecond. The lie was exposed. On Viral Prime, the High Council chamber fell silent as human envoys arrived, not in chains, not under guard, but walking freely through corridors no one could lock against them. "You built a peace to disarm us," a human representative said evenly. "You failed to account for preparation." Councilors slumped in their seats, stripped of authority, of leverage, of illusion. In orbit, human fleets remained still, weapons offline but present, reminders rather than threats. Admiral Rowan watched the final confirmations scroll in. "Phase 6 complete," an aide said. "All hostile capability neutralized. 0 civilian casualties." Rowan closed his eyes briefly. Then broadcast the conclusion. Across the galaxy, a final message spread, not loud, not dramatic, but impossible to ignore. "Peace is honored when it is honest. Treachery will be met with readiness. Empires recalculated. Treaties were rewritten. And in the space where fear once lived, a new certainty took root. Humanity did not seek war. But when peace became a weapon, humanity became the shield. The war ended without a final battle. There was no desperate charge, no last fleet burning in defiance. The Council's strength had already been dismantled, piece by piece, system by system, until nothing remained that could meaningfully resist. What survived was structure without power, authority without force. Silence spread across former Council space. On the Ethris, Admiral Rowan stood before the central holo display as confirmations arrived from every sector. Shipyards secured. Command nodes under human oversight. Military academies closed. Weapons stockpiles locked behind human encryption that could not be overridden. Hostile capability reduced to zero, the operations officer reported. Compliance holding across all regions. Rowan nodded once. Then we keep our word. Human fleets did not occupy worlds. They withdrew, slowly, deliberately, leaving behind nothing but automated enforcement buoys and open communication channels. Civilian governments resumed control under strict oversight. Trade routes reopened. Medical convoys arrived where shortages had begun to form. The galaxy noticed. Humanity had won, and then stepped back. On Viral Prime, the former High Council reconvened in a chamber stripped of its grandeur. No banners. No ceremonial guards. Only truth laid bare. Neutral observers stood alongside human envoys as the record of betrayal was entered into permanent galactic archive. You built peace as a cage, Admiral Rowan said calmly. We treated it as a test. One counselor finally spoke, voice hollow. What do you want now? Rowan didn't hesitate. Honest peace. Across the stars, the final human broadcast followed, not as a threat but as doctrine. Humanity will honor every treaty it signs. Humanity will never assume good faith without preparation. Weapons will remain armed, not for conquest but for survival. No triumph. No gloating. Just certainty. Neutral civilizations adjusted overnight. Defense doctrines rewritten. Diplomacy reshaped around a simple truth. Agreements with humans were binding, because humans assumed betrayal and planned beyond it. On Earth, the celebrations were quiet this time. No fireworks, no speeches. Just relief. The knowledge that billions had been spared because someone, somewhere, had refused to believe peace came without risk. Captain Mara Chen watched her ship slip into jump space, weapons powered down at last. We came armed, her first officer said softly. Chen nodded. So we could leave in peace. Far across the galaxy, enforcement buoys blinked steadily, silent witnesses to a new era. Peace still existed. But now it was protected by readiness. And the galaxy would remember the lesson forever. Humanity does not fear war. Humanity prepares for it. And that is why peace survives.